The reason why we're here, as Doug said, is we are probably an unusual investment for Amati. We have the pleasure and honor of having them as a shareholder since January this year. We are a cloud communication service provider. What does that mean? That means we provide all the communication the most professional users of communication require in the marketplace. That means voice, email, SMS, any type of communication primarily used by contact centers. Now, contact centers used to be typically called call centers. Call centers have, as a definition, call in association with voice, which, by the way, is still the vast majority of the way the industry communicates. Why contact centers? Because contact centers have a requirement for optimization of the way they communicate with their customers as the raison d'etre for their business. Unless it's efficient and unless they can track the way they operate, they don't have a business. Now, if you could look at what contact centers tend to be associated with, is thousands of people in remote areas placing millions of calls trying to sell you something. Now, it is true these contact centers do exist, but the reality is that the vast majority of contact centers are any department of any enterprise, SME, or any type of business that communicates with its counterparties. That means a telesales department, a debt collection department, a customer services department, an IT support department. They wouldn't necessarily classify themselves as contact centers, but that's what they use. It's the kind of technology that enables them to be efficient at their job. In a very simplistic term, and this applies to any business, when you have a standard workflow where people are required to be in contact and available for the outside world, if they operate manually, assume a telephone. A telephone is the easiest example, and they had to place calls, you can assume that they are efficient about 15 to 20% of their time. When you start including automation in their processes, and you can push it all the way to the algorithms and the software to drive their activity, their efficiency can go up to 50+%. So from an ROI perspective, it's very easy to understand that your biggest cost is always personnel for these kind of functions, and technology enables the improvement of the efficiency and the operation. What are contact centers, what are customers use us for? It could be inbound or outbound activities, and that could be, as I said, say sales. You can have a sales department that receives calls from customers interested in purchasing goods they've identified on the internet. It could be telesales. It could be companies that have an operation that follows the sun. You can have a customer service department that operates in the US, in US hours, Europe, in European hours, in Asia, and they require the same system, this visibility to the same technology, and the workflow to be handed over from one operator to the next without the end customers perceiving it makes any difference, and they are available 24/7. We also have customers who have very localized operations, but that operation is the same globally, and what they need is to have a standard way of interacting with their customers and visibility on a centralized basis for the way they operate globally. Our technologies enable to do this. But this is not new. I mean, contact centers, call centers have been in existence for a long time. But the way it used to work, you had what are called PBXs, which are the basic telephone systems in a back room, in a server room. And when you needed to add added value services, the way to queue phone calls or be able to place automated calls, you would add one server on top of the other. Often these systems would not talk very well to each other. So the operators ended up with a PC with loads of different applications that didn't necessarily interop very well with one another. So the efficiency was quite reduced. And also, the CapEx was significant because every time you need to add a new feature, you had to buy new licenses, new hardware, etc. The world has moved on, and the way we operate, we are a cloud vendor. Now, cloud means we look after all the technology. We have the infrastructure, the telecommunication, back-end connecting to the outside world. We are an internet service provider. We have servers in multiple data centers. We developed all the software in-house, and we provide a service to our customers through a website. All our customers need is access to the internet, and for voice, headsets connected to a PC or a tablet. That's all. We do the rest. Now, the reason why this is particularly important is because when you look at any type of operation, especially new operations, and new operations don't necessarily mean startups, but it could be any of your businesses where you have a new project. Often, you are in the situation where you have to release a budget from somewhere to invest in infrastructure, in new systems, and that is what is typically called the getting start tax. You have to spend money prior to demand actually happening. And demand is never quite as straightforward and in a straight line as people forecast. So you spend money first, and then demand catches up with you, and then you have to spend more money again for capacity planning, and demand sometimes catches up with you, sometimes overshoots. So you never have a cost base that is matching the actual requirement of the business. What cloud does is it matches absolutely perfectly the cost to the revenue generation, because customers can buy services on a usage basis. That means if you have 50 users 1 month, you pay for 50 licenses, and the utilization of the system, if it's phone calls, you pay for phone calls or receive phone calls. If the following month you have 40 users, you pay for 40. Therefore, you never have an extra expenditure which does not match the revenue. And this is why cloud is particularly relevant. I'll give you a very practical example. We have one customer who is a very large outsourcer for government contracts. They had a request from the Cabinet Office to run a very small pilot program for a certain area in the country. The pilot program was going to run for 3 months. The internal cost of setting up their systems and putting the training, the licenses, and all the requirements was higher than the expected revenue of that pilot program. Now, Cabinet Office calls, what do? You take it. What they did was they found us on a Thursday. They were live Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Their cost has always been variable. This happened 18 months ago, still running. There were 20 people when they started, there are over 100. Now, the beauty for them is that they didn't have any startup cost. They didn't have any CapEx. And that pilot could run off at any point, and they wouldn't have any ongoing costs because they can turn it off at any point and the service finishes. And this gives an example of a situation where customers are not necessarily startups who do not want to make initial investments. It's companies of any size in any cycle of their growth. And often, the other decision is when you need new features, what do? Do you buy them from the existing suppliers with an incremental CapEx, and you don't know whether these services are going to fulfill the requirements you have, or do you trial on a cloud basis where you have very limited risk? This is why our type of technologies, and it doesn't apply only for contact centers. In our case, that's what we do. But cloud is invading all businesses because that's the way the industry is moving. Now, the market we play in is very, very large. Contact center, traditional contact centers, and traditional contact center is a company that focuses on contact center services, where it's the core business, exceed 12 million users globally. In the UK alone, it's over 650,000 people who work in contact centers. That does not include the enterprise departments, which are contact centers but don't define themselves as such. Our biggest client is Booking.com. Surely some of you will have used them to book hotels. We operate there, we provide them the platform for the team that interops with their customers, which are the hotels. They use us in 45 countries, in 90 offices. The managers of that division have real-time visibility of what happens in 90 offices at any point, and they can tweak the way they use services in one geography if a different geography is providing better results. And that is all real-time with no CapEx. So the enterprise space, you can very comfortably estimate at over twice the size of the traditional contact centers. So take the whole industry, just under 40 million users. Now, this industry exists today. These are not future growth, but clearly it's in the hands of the incumbents, which used to be the people who sell hardware and software in the premises. Now, we are, at this stage, you'd be surprised to hear, we only have 4,000 users out of, as we said, multi-millions. So the potential for growth is significant. I can't answer all the points that Doug raised. Are there barriers to entry where nobody else can follow us? Certainly not. We fall in a different category. We are the new players coming to challenge an existing industry which traditionally was very inefficient. Now, small number of users, but the revenue is growing nicely. We went from £3.3 million in 2012 to over 6 million in 2013. And the last quarter of this year, we've grown over 30% from last year. We've grown significantly as a company as well. The reason why we approached Amati was because we were always a profitable business. We decided to make a big investment in R&D to extend our technology to be able to address the next requirements. And that means we went from 55 people in December last year to 110 people now. Our office is about 10 minutes walking distance from here. I can guarantee you managing the growth, 100% growth of people, is not fun. On the other hand, seeing the results of that growth is fascinating, because you can start exploring more and more services, more and more capabilities. We started from voice. Typically, contact centers use voice. The reality is, when customers want to talk to companies, they don't only want to have a phone call, especially the newer generations. They want to be on chat, SMS, email, social networks, you name it. So we started from voice. We are extending our capabilities to what is called multi-channel, allowing a company to contact and be contacted by their customers and have visibility of how they're interacting with their customers through multiple technologies. People don't only use PCs. The mobile world is exploding. And mobile used to be associated with telephones. It actually is mostly tablets these days, where people are replacing PCs with tablets. Our technology, being web-based, is already available on multiple devices. But it is very different to have what is called a native application, which is an application installed on a tablet versus using just a website on a tablet. So we are extending those capabilities to be in the app store, as they're called, inside the tablet platforms. And finally, what is most important for our customers is all very well and good to communicate with the outside world, but how do you actually track it? What do you see? How can you make business intelligence-led decisions for the future? So we started from a reporting technology which was very much based on the services we provide, whereby we give our customers a real-time visibility of everything they do, how they're interacting with the outside world. We're extending that to use what is called big data technologies. Big data technologies allow customers to find all sorts of different data points from the historic performance. And we will enable our customers to add their own data onto our reporting platform, which means they will see through our technologies how the systems they use with us interoperate and work with their own internal data, which might mean number of sales they've closed, number of people that are happy from, as the result of a survey. It could be any type of data which can be imported into our technology to aggregate and to give a single visibility of the whole thing. Now, this is the roadmap we're going under, and this is the reason why we raised capital from Amati. Thank you very much.